I'm Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analysis, and this is going to be your new favorite football betting podcast. I've assembled a team of experts, and we've got you covered. We're going to be giving you best bets and player props in the NFL, college football, and hopefully giving you a lot of great detailed analysis to show you why these are some great bets for you to make, all while making the games more fun and enjoyable to watch along the way. Before we get into what we're going to be covering today, I want to mention that we have a super special 1 cent sale. All of my week 8 NFL props for just 1 penny this week only. Head to sharp.football for more information. We'll be giving you some more information later on in the show as well. Today, some of the games that we're going to be breaking down for you. Texas A&M at LSU, Missouri at Vanderbilt. In the NFL, we're definitely going to hit at the big game on prime time with the Green Bay Packers traveling to Pittsburgh to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. We're going to hit the Cowboys at the Broncos, the marquee game in the late slate that day. We're also going to hit the Dolphins at the Falcons, the Titans at the Colts, the Bills at the Panthers, and much, much more with bets and analysis for every single pick. Look, we won the best bet of the show last week once again. We're now 28-10. That's 74% since I started this podcast last year. This year, we're looking to improve to 7-1. I've got my best bet for you later on in the show as well. But before we get into that, I need to mention we're doing another $100 giveaway in the comments below. Last week, Scott M was our $100 winner. He picked Amon-Ra St. Brown to score the first touchdown in the Bucs-Lions Monday Night Football game. Comment below who you think scores the first touchdown in this week's Monday Night Football game between the Commanders and the Chiefs, and we'll pick a winner to receive $100 added to their Novig account. Make sure you have a Novig account, and if you don't, just click on the link below, and you can get a Novig account, and you'll get a $100 match when you sign up for that Novig account. So look at us giving away a couple $100 before we even get started with the show. That being said, let's dive in. All right, guys, before we get into breaking down some of the biggest games for Sunday, and then, of course, giving you some of our favorite bets of the week, we've got to talk a little bit about this Thursday night football game. It was kind of a snoozer, and it was appropriate to have Al Michaels on this call. It was an absolute blowout. The LA Chargers win over the Minnesota Vikings 37-10, and really had this game in control from start to finish. Let's first talk about some of the accolades and give some congratulations to the LA Chargers. We'll start with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, obviously going up against Brian Flores' blitz. That's the biggest thing you have to overcome. The highest blitz rates in the NFL, one of the highest pressure rates in the NFL. How are you going to handle that? It obviously helped that he had his tackles back for this game and Joe Alt returned, but we saw Justin Herbert outstanding versus the blitz of Brian Flores. Justin Herbert goes 13 of 15 for 162 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 124 passer rating, and plus 17% completion percentage over expected against the blitz. Phenomenal work against the blitz of Brian Flores. Now, the other thing that you need to do if you're a quarterback and you're dealing with a defensive coordinator that blitzes as much as Brian Flores, you have to be ready to move around the pocket. And sometimes you're throwing the ball down the field. Sometimes you need to scramble with the football. And we saw Justin Herbert do that extremely well in this game. He had 7 scrambles for 62 yards. That's 8.9 yards per carry. Now, what have I talked about on this show for years now? The fact that you need a quarterback who is going to be able to take off when there's an open run lane in front of him and scramble with the football. That is as close to a layup or a slam dunk in the NFL as it gets, because you're guaranteed usually, if that truly is an open run lane, to get 7, 8, 9 yards. And when we're talking about like Justin Herbert gaining 8.9 yards per carry on those scrambles, that is as good as any quarterback throwing the football. If a quarterback averaged 8.9 yards per attempt, he's absolutely crushing it. So take those layups, and Justin Herbert did. He took off when he had the ability to and gained chunk yards. It obviously worked out in the Chargers' favor, helped them win the game. In addition, obviously, you get some unheralded players who are stepping up given opportunities. Vidal, the running back, 24 touches, 127 total yards, 73 yards after contact, and a touchdown. I mean, hopefully you grabbed him on your fantasy team because he is absolutely eating right now in this offense. And keep in mind, he's running for a Greg Roman offense. Greg Roman loves to feed his leading running back, especially these little bowling ball of butcher knives that they used to call Maurice Jones-Drew. I mean, this is the style of Vidal, and this is exactly what Greg Roman loves in his offense. Feed the guy who's just going to keep plowing ahead for yards and burst some and break some tackles and scoot around the outside at times. And that's exactly what we're getting here. Gadsden, first half alone, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And this guy continues to deliver. Obviously, what took him out of it was he didn't even do anything in the second half. He didn't have a single target thrown his way. So therefore, no catches, no yards, no more touchdowns. They didn't need him. It was such a blowout at that point in time. They didn't need to utilize him. Chargers defense, 28 pressures, most of them on Carson Wentz. 28 pressures. If that sounds like a lot, it is. It is tied for the most pressures on an opposing quarterback in any game this year and in any game last year. Last 2 years, it's tied for the most pressures in any game. They had 5 sacks, 47% pressure percentage, and 1 interception. Great job by the Jesse Minter defense against Carson Wentz, who lost Christian Darrisaw, his tackle. That obviously hurt the Minnesota Vikings protection schemes, but Carson Wentz was obviously terrible. Let's talk about Carson Wentz a little bit, but first let's talk about Kevin O'Connell. When I wrote in my 2025 football preview that's sitting over my shoulder here, right here, and I talked about the Minnesota Vikings this year, one of my concerns was how good this team was last year at jumping out in games, at jumping out to leads in games, and what was going to happen this year with inexperienced quarterback play. Would Kevin O'Connell be as aggressive and as willing to throw the football down the field earlier and try to get explosive plays early in games like they were doing last year? And that just hasn't been the case. Last year, they ranked number 6 at rate of games led at halftime. They led at halftime in 11 of 17 games. This year, they've played 7 games. You know how many games they've led at halftime? 1. 1 game they've led at halftime. That's 29th in the NFL, from number 6 to number 29. Point margin at halftime. Last year, they ranked number 5 in point margin at halftime. They led in combined across all games by 80 points. This year, instead of being number 5, they're down at number 22, minus 13 points from a point margin perspective. And then first quarter points. Last year, they were the number 2 highest scoring team in the first quarter of games. This year, they're number 16. So again, a massive decline. And part of it does relate to, yes, I know the quarterbacks aren't quite as good, but because they're not as good, Kevin O'Connell doesn't have the confidence to really try to build those leads quickly, to jump out on top of teams. And that has a ripple effect and a trickle-down effect across everything. Brian Flores' ability to play with a lead and get even more creative with the blitz packages because the opposing quarterbacks have to throw the ball if the Vikings are up at halftime. That's not happening. The Vikings are only up in 1 game. So now Brian Flores is playing from behind. They're playing from desperation. They're playing from a position of weakness defensively and offensively. So it all goes back to, yes, the quarterbacks aren't great, but because the quarterbacks haven't been great, Kevin O'Connell has been more scared to be aggressive early with his play calling. And that's just compounding the problems for the Minnesota Vikings. If you had to put all of what I just said into one singular play, we saw it tonight. The things that you do when Carson Wentz is your quarterback. It was a 2nd and goal from the 15-yard line, down 24-3. And you know what play Kevin O'Connell called? A running back draw from shotgun. They handed the ball off down 24-3 in the second half in 2nd and goal from the 15-yard line. And obviously you're not scoring a touchdown on that play. You just don't want Carson Wentz to ruin anything for you. And that's the way you can keep Carson Wentz off the game plan. Now, Funny thing happened in this game. This is a moment of levity. I thought Al Michaels was talking about the field goal kicker for the Minnesota Vikings, Will Rickard, and he mentioned the fact that the only miss occurred over in London where the ball, or I think it was either London or Ireland. Either way, the ball hit one of the guide wires from one of the spider cams above the stadium, and that was his only miss. So he just said that in passing, and then they continued on and went to commercial break. They kept calling the game. I believe it was after halftime in the second half. Al Michaels comes on and corrects himself and says that the NFL was not too happy about his comment and that it wasn't a wire that changed the direction of the kick. It was an optical illusion. This is a real thing that Al Michaels said on national TV. I'm sitting here by myself, laughing at the fact that I'm just picturing Roger Goodell in his sweatshirt, his sweatpants, laying on his couch, watching Al Michaels call a game on Amazon Prime. And all of a sudden he hears that a kick was missed because it hit a wire that the NFL operates. And I see him jumping up, grabbing his red emergency phone, putting it up to his ear. The call goes into the Amazon Prime studios. The producer picks up. You better tell Al Michaels he's got to issue a correction. That was an optical illusion. I mean, just pure comedy that the NFL would care so much about that to make Al Michaels issue a correction during the middle of the broadcast. That was pretty funny. What's not funny is where do the Minnesota Vikings go from here? And I've got a graphic that showcases the strength of schedule for all the teams. If you're watching on YouTube, which by the way, great opportunity to tell you, make sure that you are subscribing over on YouTube, search Sharp Football Analysis. That's where you can see us present all of these things in case you're listening to us in podcast form. And if you prefer podcast form, we're everywhere that you subscribe to your podcast. So make sure that you go subscribe to us over on your favorite podcast platforms. But the graphic that is being displayed showcases the team's strength of schedule that they've played year to date, so through the first 7 weeks of the season, and what they're going to play the rest of the season. And at the very bottom of this graphic, you can see that the Minnesota Vikings have played the number one easiest schedule so far this year. They are about to play the number one most difficult schedule the rest of the season. That is a scary prospect for a team that is sitting with just 3 wins. And I will tell you, through 8 weeks, they have only 3 wins. You know who they beat in those 3 games? Jake Browning, Dylan Gabriel, and Caleb Williams back in week 1. First game with Ben Johnson. Those are not good quarterbacks, right? Week 1, Caleb Williams, Dylan Gabriel, and Jake Browning. They still have to go up against the Green Bay Packers twice, the Detroit Lions twice, the Seattle Seahawks, the Baltimore Ravens, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders, etc., etc. It is a brutal schedule the rest of the way for the Minnesota Vikings, sitting at only 3 wins through 8 weeks. Not really sure what they're doing at the quarterback position. Have this been a quiet benching, soft benching to help J.J. McCarthy get him back up on his feet till he's fully healthy? I mean, that's obviously what they claim. He's standing on the sidelines. He's the emergency quarterback for multiple weeks in a row, ready to go if he needs to, but not quite perfect, 100% perfect at this stage. So they're just waiting. That's all fine and good. But he wasn't great when he was out there earlier on in the season. It's going to be interesting to see when he does get thrown into the mix here later on in the season, how he ends up performing against this difficult schedule, the hardest in the NFL. That's what J.J. McCarthy is going to be coming back to, because it's a great transition from Carson Wentz, who looked terrible, now to J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be very easy to pull the plug on the Carson Wentz experiment after a game like we saw in this one against the Los Angeles Chargers. It's going to be a tough road for the Minnesota Vikings to get back into playoff shape and try to make the playoffs this year. But let's not worry about that right now. Right now, what we need to do, forget the playoffs. It's a little ways away. Let's focus on week 8, and let's focus on some of the biggest storylines for week 8. Let's dive into breaking down some of the biggest matchups and some of the biggest factors that I am expecting to see on Sunday. Let's break it down. We have an incredible deal for all of our listeners this week. Right now, you can get all of my week 8 props for the NFL for just 1 penny. You heard that right. All of my NFL props for 1 cent. Go to sharp.football or click the link in the description below to get more details. My prop picks have produced 18.8 units of profit this season, going 154 wins to only 113 losses. That's 58%. I've been crushing my strongest props of the year, going 8-3 on those recommendations that have been a full unit or stronger. Over the last 4 years, we focused more on the prop market, and we've identified tons of value in this space. The results have shown that. For my NFL props over those 4 years have gone 977 wins to only 761 losses, generating 97.3 units of profit. We're off to a great start this season, and you need to be part of another winning weekend. Go to sharp.football right now to get all of our props for just 1 cent. Before we talk about some of our favorite bets this weekend, I want to talk about some of the biggest games this weekend from an analytical perspective. And it doesn't get any bigger than Aaron Rodgers versus his former team, the Green Bay Packers. So let's dive in here. When the Green Bay Packers have the football on the road against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and what I want you to be paying close attention for is the blitz rate of the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they do when they blitz. Let's break this down. The key issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers is they blitz at the number 4 highest rate in the NFL. But the Packers are the number 4 best team against blitzes. So before we talk about making teams pay for blitzing, let's talk about what the Pittsburgh Steelers do defensively when they don't blitz. If they don't blitz, they get pressure on just 30% of dropbacks, which ranks 18th in the NFL, below average. When they don't blitz, they rank 28th in EPA per attempt allowed out of 32 defenses, obviously, and 29th in success rate. They rank ahead of only the terrible pass defenses of the Bengals, Cowboys, Dolphins, and Jets when they don't blitz. That sets up a big problem for the Steelers, who have played a pretty easy schedule of opposing quarterbacks. I mean, they're ranking poorly despite playing quarterbacks like Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Carson Wentz. Now, when they blitz, they do play better defensively. But of course, they've gone up against quarterbacks that are terrible against the blitz. That's not the case here with Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. They excel against the blitz. Jordan Love ranks number 1 in success rate against the blitz, number 1 in quarterback accuracy against the blitz, number 2 in EPA per attempt against the blitz, and number 7 in yards per attempt against the blitz. And it's not just underneath efficiency. The Packers make teams pay for blitzing against them. They are number 4 in first down rate, number 6 in percentage of pass attempts that gain 15 plus yards, and they're outstanding on third down with the number 3 best third down conversion rate against the blitz, 60% conversions. Jordan Love has played just 2 teams that blitz at an above average rate this year. In those 2 games, he played the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. He dominated both of those teams, averaged 9.4 yards per attempt against the Commanders, 8.5 yards per attempt against the Lions. The Packers scored 27 points in both of those games, and Jordan Love had a combined 4 touchdowns to no interceptions in those games. It's a strategy I like to call attack the attacker. Don't let the blitzing team be the aggressor and simply bow down and try to play short and play quick underneath, but make them pay for blitzing you. And that's what I really am curious to see, how well Jordan Love and this Green Bay Packers offense performs against one of the most blitz-heavy teams in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because as I mentioned, if the Steelers choose to blitz less, they've been terrible defensively. And if they choose to blitz more, the Packers are one of the best in the NFL at attacking those blitzing defenses. Next up, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Chicago Bears. This looks like it could be the return of Lamar Jackson as we sit here recording, and that's going to be big for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens are just 1-5 on the season, but they have played the number 1 most difficult schedule in the NFL to date. If you want to look at the offensive schedule, they've played the number 1 toughest defenses. If you want to look at the defensive schedule, they've played the number 2 toughest offenses, the number 1 toughest schedule of quarterbacks passing the football against them. Now they get to go up against Caleb Williams, who, while the Chicago Bears have started to play a little bit better overall, Caleb Williams is still struggling massively. And if you look at some of these statistics, I think it's interesting. The Chicago Bears, record-wise, look good, but they lead the league in turnover differential at plus 11. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens record looks horrible, but they rank number 31 in turnover differential at -7. So you've got teams that are on opposite ends of the spectrum here. The Chicago Bears, great at taking the ball away and haven't turned it over much. The Baltimore Ravens, the exact opposite of that. In a one-off game situation, this game could come down to who is more responsible with the football and which defense might be able to get some takeaways. So that's been a big factor in the overall record of both of these teams, as has the schedule that the Baltimore Ravens have played. Baltimore is laying 6.5 points at home, which is a line that assumes that Lamar Jackson is going to start. And if Lamar Jackson does come back and he could play at 100% against a weaker Chicago Bears team than what the Baltimore Ravens have gone up against before, there's a very good chance that the Baltimore Ravens actually get right back on track offensively and have a very good day and could easily cover this spread so long as they do not lose the turnover battle in this game. The last we saw of the Buffalo Bills, it wasn't super pretty, and they're looking to get back on track here, still sitting at 4-2 against the Carolina Panthers, who surprisingly to some are sitting at 4-3. Both these teams have 4 wins. That wasn't necessarily what we would be expecting entering this big Week 8 battle. But we've got the Buffalo Bills going on the road to take on the Carolina Panthers. And one thing to pay attention to here is Josh Allen behind center when he drops back to pass the ball. And the reason that that's something interesting is because Josh Allen has been surprisingly bad when he's been pressured this year. Listen to some of these numbers. Josh Allen has completed just 48% of his passes for 5.4 yards per attempt, with 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions when he's been pressured. These are numbers that rank definitely below average. But when he's been kept clean, Josh Allen has completed 76% of his passes for 8.8 yards per attempt and 9 touchdowns to no interceptions. Pressure has really been bothering Josh Allen in 2025 more than it has in prior years. Most quarterbacks aren't as good when they are being pressured, but Josh Allen dropping off to this level is a little bit surprising. The good news, though, on Sunday he goes up against the Carolina Panthers defense, which ranks dead last in the NFL in terms of pressure rate, getting pressure on only 25% of opposing quarterback dropbacks. So Josh Allen could be in for a much better day here, being able to navigate the pocket without being pressured and falling into that subset where he's 9 touchdowns to no interceptions with much higher completion percentage, EPA, yards per attempt, etc. when he's been kept clean. One of the biggest tests of the weekend is going to be Drake May going up against the pass defense of the Cleveland Browns. Drake May has vastly exceeded expectations so far this year. It's going to be a lot of fun watching him against a top flight pass defense. But there are a couple of things that are working in Drake May's favor here. The first is that Drake May and this passing attack of the New England Patriots ranks number 2 best in the NFL passing against man coverage. And you know where the Cleveland Browns pass defense ranks in terms of man coverage usage? Number 1. They use the most. So this right there on the surface bodes well for Drake May to have some success. The key, though, is going to be his time to throw. And that's what I want you to pay attention to on Sunday. This Cleveland Browns pass defense is one of the best in the NFL. They're especially great at when they force quarterbacks to hold on to the football a little bit longer. That's because if quarterbacks hold on to the football and try to pass it in 2.5 seconds or longer against this pass defense, the Cleveland Browns allow just a 53% completion rate and a league best 5.3 yards per attempt. So they're the number 1 defense, 5.3 yards per attempt if you try to hold on to the football. But if you pass the football in less than 2.5 seconds against them, this pass defense drops to 18th in completion rate, allowing 73% completions, 30th in yards per attempt, allowing 7.5 yards per attempt, and 26th in touchdown rate, allowing 7.1% touchdowns. So the key here, Drake May is going to like that man coverage, but he can't be holding on to the football in the pocket. Now, Cleveland Browns also have a great run defense, so you're maybe not going to want to run Ramondre Stevenson here a lot, but if you lean into that short, quick, underneath pass game, and if you watch this game on Sunday and you see Drake May dropping back quickly and getting rid of the football underneath, odds are he's going to have a lot of success against a tough matchup overall, but the definite right way to attack this defense is with those quick passes. Now joining me is our college football betting expert, Ryan McChrystal. As a reminder, you can find all of Ryan's outstanding analysis and game previews for all the college games over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. First up, Ryan, you're looking at the LSU Texas A&M game. The highest ranked team in the SEC isn't Alabama or Georgia or Texas or Oklahoma or Tennessee. It's actually Texas A&M, and this team is winning in a variety of ways. They haven't lost a game yet this year, but you don't think that continues in Death Valley on Saturday night. You're taking LSU plus 2.5. And if we look over here on our odds screen, we can see that right now it's pretty much 2.5 at almost every single book that's out there. There is some plus 3, but for the most part, it is 2.5. You like it at 2.5. I'm sure you would love it at 3. Tell us a little bit about why you think LSU pulls off the upset.
Yeah, great game on Saturday night in Death Valley. This will be a fun one with LSU trying to stay in the playoff race and Texas A&M obviously looking to keep that undefeated record intact. You know me, when we talk about games, I like to dig into the matchup on the field, sort of the X's and O's types of things and how teams match up. But I want to start this out in sort of a different place because one of the reasons I'm on LSU is Brian Kelly. There's a really strong trend here for Brian Kelly as a home underdog. Throughout his entire career as a head coach at the FBS level, he's played 20 games as a home underdog. He's won 13 of those games outright. This is a spot where Brian Kelly tends to get his team prepared and up for this big moment. And with LSU having their back against the wall in this matchup, the home environment at night in Death Valley, obviously that's one of the best environments in all of college football. I think he's going to have his team really ready for this moment and step up and pull off the upset in this game. Now, to dig a little bit deeper into the matchup and how these teams actually stack up on this field, there's definitely some areas where both teams have an edge. You could make a case for A&M in some certain areas, but one of the things that I looked at, I think LSU is going to be able to adjust their passing attack a little bit to negate Texas A&M's pass rush, which is really the strength of the defense. They get after the quarterback really well. And at first glance, you might think this is a good matchup for A&M's pass rush because Garrett Nussmeier is more of a pocket passer. He takes a traditional drop back over 50% of the time, slightly above average. However, he also has 44% of his dropbacks have been one-step dropbacks or RPOs. So even though he tends to take longer dropbacks and stay in the pocket, the quick passing attack is still a big part of this offense. They've got some weapons who can make plays after the catch. And so that is still a pretty significant part of the LSU offense. And that's what you need to do to beat this A&M pass rush is just get the ball out quickly. So the fact, even though it's not their primary option in the passing game, the fact that they're still doing it at a decent rate makes me think that it's a pretty quick adjustment. And Kelly throughout his career has always been a coach that, you know, on both sides of the ball, his teams will make adjustments from game to game. That's why he's been a good coach for so long. He's never gotten stuck in one way. And he's been able to continue that success now for 20 or so years because he adapts from matchup to matchup from year to year. So it's such an obvious way to adapt. I think he's going to do that. And if you look at those quick dropbacks when Nussmeier is taking that one-step drop of those RPO plays, LSU's passing attack, which hasn't been very good this year, they rank 14th in positive EPA rate on those quick passing plays. It's probably something they should do a little bit more often across the board. But in this matchup in particular, it's a great way to negate the pass rush. And they've been successful on those types of plays to begin with. So I think that should be the focal point of the offense. It's an area where I looked at to see them adjust in this game. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is the best defense Texas A&M has faced since they played Auburn. Now, Auburn is not very good, but in that game, because of their good defense, A&M barely escaped at home with only a 16-10 victory in that game. You know, to put some numbers behind this LSU defense, drastically improved from last year. If you haven't watched them a lot this year, this is not the team that was getting run all over the place in the past 2 years under Brian Kelly. They rank 5th in opponent-adjusted scoring defense this year, and they've played some good teams already. So this is a legit defense. They're going to give A&M some trouble. Now, I do think A&M will have some success running the ball in this game, so there's a path to victory for A&M. By no means am I suggesting LSU is going to win this running away, but there's one other area for A&M, especially when they're on offense, that really sticks out that I'm concerned for A&M that probably gives LSU a pretty good advantage here. As I said, this is at Death Valley at night, a fantastic atmosphere. The fans are going to be into it, knowing that their backs are up against the wall, that this is a must-win game for them. That's going to, that can tend to lead to penalties. That can force teams into bad mistakes. And that's been a huge weakness of this A&M offense this year. The Aggies rank 116th in penalty yardage per game. In Death Valley, under the lights, that could be a huge problem. So give me the points with the home dog. I'm going to take Brian Kelly and LSU in this matchup.
Let's hope we see some potential false starts there when we have the ball with Texas A&M and we get to LSU to the window for us there, Ryan. Another big SEC game occurs earlier in the afternoon with Missouri taking on Vanderbilt. Now, Missouri has won 5 straight against Vanderbilt, including a double overtime victory just last year. But you're once again looking to buck recent history, and you're looking to ride with Vanderbilt in this spot. If we look at the odds screen, they are currently laying 2.5 points at home, pretty much across the board. No real change in these odds whatsoever. We're seeing 2.5 pretty much everywhere. So you won't have trouble finding 2.5 if you want to lay it with Vanderbilt. Break this game down for us a little bit. What are some of the most important matchups that we should be watching for on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, what an awesome matchup again in the SEC. 2 teams that typically aren't in the playoff discussion or national championship picture at all. Yet the winner of this game is very much alive in the playoff race. So a really awesome game. I'm picking Vandy because I think that they're going to be able to play their style of football in this game. And what Vandy wants to do is they want to run the ball, control the clock, shorten the game, and just sort of have these long drives, very much like what we saw against Alabama last season when they pulled off that great upset and held the ball for 42 minutes in that game. That continues to be their style of offense. Diego Pavia gets all the headlines. He gets all the publicity, but he's really not much of a passer. He's certainly a huge part of the offense with the way that he runs the ball also, but because he's not a great passer, they really lean heavily on the run game and just try to bleed the clock as much as possible. They rank 131st in pace of play out of 136 FBS teams. So this is their style. They want to run the ball, bleed the clock. And I think they can do that against Missouri's defense. It's a very good defense overall, but the strength is the pass rush. So going up against a team like Vandy that wants to run the ball, that's really their weakness. Now, what Vandy has been able to do this year and the way that they've been able to win many more games, even though they're using the same strategy as last year, but they only won 6 games last year. They're already, on the verge of surpassing that. They're going to fly by that number this year as they're right in the mix of the playoff race. What they've been able to do is really turn around the offensive line. They use a unique system on the offensive line. They use a strong side and a quick side offensive line rather than most teams, which have a left tackle, left guard, right tackle, right guard. They use strong side, quick side. They implemented that last year for the first time. Obviously, it didn't work that well. In fact, they ranked 130th in opponent adjusted yards before contact. So they were having some success, but it was mostly Pavia. They weren't able to do much with the offensive line in the ground game. This year, now they had a full season last year, had an off season to continue learning this system, which is pretty unique, that makes the offensive linemen line up on both sides of the offensive line throughout the game. Vandy leads the nation in opponent adjusted yards before contact per attempt. 130th last year, first this year. Dramatic turnaround. And it's allowed them to control almost every single game they've been in, other than that one loss against Alabama this year. They control the game on the ground. They just don't let you get the ball because they have these long drives. They bleed the clock. They control the tempo of the game. And they're going to be able to do that against Missouri because, another factor here, because they run the ball so much, they allow defenses to stack the box against them. They're lining up in heavier formations, and also defenses don't respect Pavia's arm, so they're not scared about trying to keep 2 safeties deep. You can stack the box against them. In fact, they have the 3rd highest stacked box rate on offense this year. They're seeing stacked boxes at a higher rate than Army is, which it's running the triple option, obviously. So to give you an idea of how easy it is to stack the box against them, that's a stark number. But Missouri, even with a stacked box, they're not great at stopping the run. In fact, they rank 114th in yards before contact allowed against a stacked box, giving up 2.5 yards before contact. Vandy wants to line up. They're going to tell you they're running the ball. They're going to run right at you. And yet, even when Missouri's defense is in those situations, they're not stopping the run. So I don't see any reason to think that Missouri is going to be able to stop Vandy in the ground game. Now, as I said, Pavia is not a passer. So there's still a path to victory for Missouri here. If Vandy makes a mistake here or there, an early turnover, Missouri gets a lead. Missouri ranks 12th in opponent adjusted pressure rate. So if they're in a situation where they have to throw the ball, that's going to be a problem. That's Missouri's path to victory. It could certainly happen if they get a lead. But because it looks like Vandy should be able to run the ball, if they just avoid mistakes, I think they control this game from start to finish. So I'll lay the points. Give me Vandy. I like Vandy to win back-to-back games against ranked opponents for the first time in school history.
I hope you guys are listening in closely because every single time that we bring Ryan on, we learn something new. That was an outstanding breakdown, Ryan, of the Vanderbilt Missouri game. I mean, I'm going to be paying close attention to the offensive line play now of Vanderbilt. Some things that I did not know before, you just shared them with us. So good luck on the bets. But most of all, guys, if you enjoy this type of analysis, which you won't find anywhere else, make sure you read even more of it over at sharpfootballanalysis.com, where Ryan breaks down additional college football games for us each and every weekend. Best of luck this weekend, Ryan. This season, we've partnered with Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market, to give you an exclusive opportunity to try out their platform. They are offered in many states that sports books are not allowed, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and more. And right now, you can get a purchase match of up to $100 with code WARREN. Just click on the Novig link in the description of the show below to get your $100 match when you open a new account. And don't forget, comment below in this video who you think is going to score the first touchdown in the Commanders-Chiefs Monday Night Football game for a chance to win another $100. After the game, we'll reply to the winner's comment on how to claim your prize, so make sure you turn your notifications on. Now joining me is Rich Rebar, our fantasy football guru over at Sharp Football Analysis and loyal member of the Sharp Prop Squad. Rich has great work over at sharpfootballanalysis.com, where you can find game previews, strategies, rankings, everything that you need to help win in fantasy football as well as DFS on a weekly basis. And we're going to review now 3 of Rich's favorite props for the upcoming week. First up, Rich, we're going to look at a rushing prop for Quinshon Judkins. And Quinshon Judkins obviously had the lion's share of work last week in horrible conditions in Cleveland against the Miami Dolphins' terrible run defense. If we look at the odds screen right now, we can see that as we speak, some under money is coming in on Quinshon Judkins, but you can still find some 69.5. There's some 66.5 out there on the market right now. And you agree with this move to the under. You are taking Quinshon Judkins under 69.5 as your favorite prop this week. What stands out about this specific prop that you like a lot?
Yeah, we've seen the kind of infrastructure of the Cleveland Browns offensive line start to catch up with Quinshon Judkins. I mean, even on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, he averaged minus 0.44 yards before contact per rush against the Miami Dolphins. 28% success rate, and 32% of his runs failed to gain yardage last week, again, against the Dolphins. Judkins is now 35th out of 37 running backs with 50 or more carries this year in yards before contact per run. And now we're catching him as a road underdog against one of the best run defenses in the NFL. The Patriots are allowing 3.2 yards per carry to running backs. That's third in the NFL. 0.62 yards before contact per running back rush. That's second in the NFL. They have not allowed more than 49 yards rushing to any individual back this season. With just 2 weeks ago, when the Browns were road underdogs against the Steelers, Judkins rushed 12 times for 36 yards. We've seen that he doesn't have as much stability in terms of staying on the field in negative game scripts because Jerome Ford matched him in snaps in that game. So I think it was when you connect all the dots, this is a spot for Judkins to flip for where we were on his overs last week to be on his unders this week.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's a great spot to go ahead and fade Judkins here in this game. Now let's turn to another rookie. This time it's Cam Ward. This time he's going on the road to take on the Indianapolis Colts. And if you look at his passing yard projection right now, there is once again a little bit of variance in the marketplace. We are seeing 197.5 passing yards up to as high as 202, 203.5 passing yards. So make sure that you shop around. But as of the time we're recording this, Rich likes the over 197.5 passing yards for Cam Ward going up against the Indianapolis Colts defense in the Dome on Sunday afternoon. Why do you like this one, Rich?
Yeah, I always try to keep you guys on your toes and give you one kind of like one out of kind of left field. Like, what about this player? I'm not betting a Cam Ward over. But, you know, hey, I'm going to lay it out here. And it's not so much about trying to sell you guys that Cam Ward is good, but I mean, he has set a new season high in completion rate each of the past 2 weeks, 68% and 74%. He's getting a little bit better. He's coming off a season high, 7.5 yards or past them. But it's really more about the environments that the Titans have been in and the Colts have put teams in. So Cam Ward has actually cleared this number in 4 of his past 5 games. The only time he didn't was against the Houston Texans pass rush. He even had 219 against the same team, the Colts, in week 3. But really, it's about the Tennessee Titans are second in the NFL in pass rate because they have to be. And the Colts opponents are second in the NFL at the second highest pass rate in the NFL because they're always trailing. As you look at the Colts have led for double-digit points on the scoreboard for 37.5% of their snaps. It's the highest rate in the league. Well, the Titans have trailed by double-digit points for 45.7% of their offensive snaps. That's the highest rate in the league. And the 6 straight quarterbacks have hit this number against the Colts. Again, one all those was also Cam Ward. We've already seen this. So you have a little bit of leeway here with even just it being at 200 yards. It's not a fun player to bet an over on, but everything lines up to this is just too low of a line.
Yeah, game state wise, obviously they're 14-point underdogs, so that matches up too. And then if you look at the fact that they had the new coaching staff come in last week, and that new coaching staff could have decided to be conservative, run heavy. It's a little bit windy against the New England Patriots. What did they decide to do? I think Tajay Spears had 5 rushing attempts, and Pollard had 6 rushing attempts, and they were just letting Cam Ward throw the ball. Why? Because that's how you attack the New England Patriots. You attack their secondary. You don't try to run the football on them. And same sort of scenario sets up here. So I like the strategy, Rich, even though it's one of those pinch your nose and go ahead and play and click it. Anyways, we're going to be pulling for Cam Ward to go over his passing yards prop. We're going to finish it up with you, Rich, with a unheralded running back prior to this season that nobody really was interested in, but has just been ripping off some great game after great game performances. And that's Rico Dowdle of the Carolina Panthers. And this week he's going up against the Buffalo Bills, is in Carolina, and you're attacking his longest rush market, which is lined at 12.5 across the board. So this isn't one you have to shop around for nearly as much. We were talking about between -105 and -106 at pretty much every single spot out there. So talk to us about why you think Rico Dowdle's in a great position to hit at least 13 on his longest rush.
Yeah, and I don't think his yards and stuff is untouchable, but I think the way to play it is through his longest rush because there still was a backfield split. Dave Canales told us that there was going to be a backfield split, and Chuba Hubbard actually started out as the favorite in that split. He played 12 snaps in the first quarter on Sunday to just Rico Dowdle's 5, but Dowdle was the better player as he has been this season and forced his way into more work as the game went on. After the first quarter, Dowdle ended up out-touching Hubbard 14-11, then out-touched him 13-6 in the second half. Canales said afterwards the plan is still use both backs, but kind of ride the air quotes, the hot hand. And if that continues to be the case, we have to bet on Dowdle. He is a runner 10 or more yards on 14.3% of his attempts. That's 3rd in the NFL amongst all running backs at 50 or more carries. Hubbard is 36th on that list at 4.5%. And when you look at this matchup, 48.3% of all of the yardage allowed by Buffalo as a defense this season has been rushing, the highest rate in the league. Well, 43% of the yardage gained by the Carolina Panthers this season on offense has been rushing, the 3rd highest rate in the league. 19.1% of the runs against the Buffalo Bills have gained double-digit yardage, the highest rate in the league. They're allowing the highest yards per carry to running backs. And another kind of feather in the cap here is that the Buffalo Bills are allowing the highest yards after contact on running back runs, 4.2 yards after contact. Well, Dowdle is the back that you would bet to take advantage of that. He averages 3.79 yards after contact per rush. That's 6th amongst all running backs, where Dowdle is 34th on that list. And as one little more caveat, Daquan Jones, defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, is expected to miss this game, just putting them down another defensive piece to stop the run. So we're looking for just one long run out of the whatever backfield split we get between Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard this week.
Is all we need, just one. And yeah, according to my matchup charts here, they are the Buffalo Bills are the team far left at giving up those explosive runs. So teams are having success on the ground against them with some of those one-off runs, and that's all we need from Dowdle. I love these selections you got for us, Rich, here. You got a couple of rookies, you got an under, you got an ugly over, you got a longest. It's right up my alley as terms of some fun props to be betting on Sunday. And look, the way that you've been cashing, hopefully we get to the window on these as well. So thanks again for your time. Everybody, make sure that you check out all of Rich's outstanding analysis over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Does great work for us. So much great written content up there all throughout the week. And we'll talk to you next time, Rich.
Good luck, everybody.
Now joining me is our NFL ref expert, Joe Gibbs. As a reminder, you can find all of Joe's outstanding referee analysis over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. And there are a couple of great games that we're going to dive into here with Joe. The first and foremost is going to be the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. This is going to be a fun battle, especially when the Dallas Cowboys have the ball, a great offense against a great defense. Who is going to survive this one? Right now, if we're looking at the odds screen, we can see that the Dallas Cowboys are catching 3 to 3.5 points as an underdog. Denver Broncos are laying it. The total sitting right around 50.5. Joe, at this slate, we've got some very unattractive games surrounding this one. We've got the Saints versus the Bucs. We also have the Titans versus the Colts. So this one certainly is going to be the one everybody's going to be watching on the 4:25 late kickoff window. It's refereed by Carl Cheffers. What does Carl Cheffers on the whistle factor into this game, and what do you expect to see him do from an incorporating his strategies and style of play into this game?
Yeah, so Cheffers, I got a laundry list of information here in regards to his crew and these two teams. A lot of things align, whether positively or negatively on Sunday. So Cheffers himself, a very good home field referee. Home teams going back to 2016, 62% straight up win record, 54% against the spread. And this season, home teams are 5-1 straight up and 5-1 against the spread in Carl Cheffers officiated contests. So that gives you some idea of how they lean as far as the officiating angles. The game itself, ton of stuff. Here we go. Cheffers, 41.5% of his penalties in the all-important, I say it every week, Warren, false start, offensive holding combination. 41.5% of those are done by Cheffers' crew. That's well above the league average in that category. And here's what's key. Cheffers, the Broncos, and the Cowboys all rank in the top 5 for offensive holding. So that's going to play a huge part on Sunday. Whatever team can navigate that the best with this crew in charge. Cheffers, above average defensive pass interference and defensive holding penalties. They rank 3rd and 4th respectively in those two categories. The Broncos rank number 1 for defensive pass interference penalties this season. And that category, defensive holding, defensive pass interference, that accounts for 21.5% of Broncos penalties. And the league average in that is about 13.7%. So you got a crew here, emphasizes that stuff, a defense in Denver that, is prone to committing those penalties. And I'll expand on that in a little bit. The Dallas Cowboys, a top 5 beneficiary of automatic first downs via penalty, and they had generating beneficial defensive pass interference penalties. And George Pickens are really good with that stuff, and that's despite Lamb missing multiple games. They still rank number 1. So you start factoring all these key penalty categories, offensive holding, false start, defensive holding, defensive pass interference. Those are the big 4. This crew emphasizes those. Both teams have issues with those penalties. So the variance from a penalty perspective on Sunday is going to be immense. I want to put a couple more things in there. The automatic first downs via penalty, this compounds Denver's problems. In theory, they rank number 1 surrendering these penalties. And that sounds bad on the surface. But if you do it the right way, it's not if you commit them, it's when you commit them. And the Broncos are only committing 21% of these automatic first downs via penalty on the key 3rd down plays. That's well below league average. So, yeah, Denver does commit a lot of penalties, but it comes on the early downs, which are not as punitive as those 3rd down penalties. The game itself, I cut Denver some slack last week. It was an amazing comeback, but they came back from England the week prior. They looked sluggish out of the gates, and they were sluggish for 3 quarters. And then they caught lightning in a bottle in the 4th quarter. I think they'll be a lot more prepared, a lot more rested this week at home. They got one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. You got Cheffers on the game. I like the Broncos in this one.
It's hard to imagine them coming out to a poor start against this horrible Dallas Cowboys defense. Everybody seems to move the ball on the Dallas Cowboys defense, even Bo Nix when he's not really in tune. Now, the next game up, though, is going to be extremely fascinating. This one is a game that I'm thrilled to watch, but absolutely hated to hear who's refereeing when you told me, Joe, because, look, we're watching Aaron Rodgers and we're watching him go up against his old team, the Green Bay Packers. I want to see a lot of close-in shots of Aaron Rodgers and his reaction. I want to see Matt LaFleur, the coach of the Green Bay Packers. I want to see the quarterback that Aaron Rodgers replaced, Jordan Love. I want to see a little bit of Mike Tomlin. I want to see the game. I want to see the action. What I don't want to see is a lot of the referee. And unfortunately, the NFL stuck Shawn Hochuli on this game. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, just tune in on Sunday night and you'll see Shawn Hochuli loves to be long-winded in his explanations. The other thing, Joe, that I noticed about Shawn Hochuli, he knows that the camera is on him. And instead of actually just like calling the penalty, he'll sit there and point at this guy, point at that guy, point at a bunch of things, knowing the camera's on him so that he just takes up more airtime on the screen. He just bugs me. I don't know why. I think it's just because he's trying to put himself into the game a little bit more. But this game is going to be intriguing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if we look at the odds screen, are 3-point home underdogs at the moment. Total sitting right around 45.5 points. So Steelers home underdog. The total sits at 45.5. What does Shawn Hochuli on the whistle mean to you in terms of the way that we should be studying this game and potentially any bets that you think we should be making?
Okay, so I got a laundry list of details on this. I'm going to condense it for, to save the viewers the hassle. But here's some of the key points. Hochuli, not a great home field referee, complete opposite to the previous game we covered. Home team's just 46% against the spread in his career. The Steelers are 6-3 straight up, 6-3 against the spread with Shawn Hochuli. Here's the interesting point. 7 of those games, they were underdogs. They're 6-1 against the spread in those 7 contests, but 6 of those 7 games were on the road. Only one of them was at home in Pittsburgh. So keep that in mind. As far as Hochuli's points of emphasis, anyone who's followed me knows this guy is sort of synonymous with offensive penalties. He led the league last year in that category, and he's always in the top, 2 or 3, emphasizing offensive penalties. They have dialed it back this year, though. They're hovering around league average, which is extremely unusual. But what I noticed is that decline in offensive penalties, those excess penalties have shifted to special teams penalties, and they rank 4th overall in special teams penalties. So what they're not calling on the offenses has gone to special teams, and that's resulting in bad starting field position more often than not with this crew in charge. So keep that in mind on Sunday night. Let's get into specifics. The all-important false start offensive holding combination, it's been an issue for Green Bay. 44% of their penalties have come in those 2 categories, and that's well above league average. Conversely, the Steelers, just 25% have come in those 2. Rodgers is a master at the line of scrimmage. He gets rid of the ball quickly, which should mitigate some of that Packers pass rush, but it also doesn't allow for long plays. So there's a plus and minus on that strategy, but it's kind of essential because the offensive line is not that good. But penalty-wise, as far as penalty per game average on the offense, the Steelers rank 31st in the league. Only the Detroit Lions are better at this stage of the game. The Steelers defense, here we go. Something's got to give here. Illegal contact. I don't know if you've noticed that there seems to be a lot more illegal contact penalties called this season. Now, you may just think that's just you, but it's not. It's actually on pace for a record amount of illegal contact penalties being called. To put this in perspective, only one season have we exceeded 100 illegal contact calls in a season. We're on pace right now for about 130 to 140. Shawn Hochuli's crew leads the league calling illegal contact penalties. However, the Steelers and the Packers, they don't commit a lot of those penalties, and they don't generate a lot of those penalties on the beneficial side of things. So something's got to give there with illegal contact. Hochuli, they don't call it a defensive holding or defensive pass interference. However, they do rank highly over the years for roughing the passer penalties. They led the league last year. They're always in that top 2 or 3. This year, they're ranking about 5th. But what they've done, in absence of calling those penalties, unnecessary roughness. They rank number 1 for unnecessary roughness penalties through 7 weeks of the season. And these primetime games tend to get these calls at a higher rate than what you would in a regular Sunday game. So keep that in mind. They rank number 1 for unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Again, these discipline-related penalties get called at a higher rate on primetime games because they know everyone's watching, the commissioner's watching, the execs are all watching. The teams themselves, look, I detailed the Steelers with Hochuli. The Packers are just very choppy. I've been high on them now for a couple of years, and you see glimpses of really good play, but more often than not, it's just very plodding. The offense is slow, a lot of penalties. It's just very choppy. Long term, they clearly have more upside than what Pittsburgh has. I think what we've seen from Pittsburgh so far this season is kind of what we get. That's their ceiling. But for this game Sunday night, I mean, it's a perfect situation. You got the Steelers at home off a little bit extra rest. They're a home underdog. And look, let's just keep it real here. It's in the league's best interest for these games to go down to the wire and expect it to be officiated with that goal in mind. That's just the way it is, okay? This is going to get record ratings. They want a close game that goes right down to the end. Good spot for the Steelers. Tomlin tends to get the best out of his teams in these situations. I like Pittsburgh +3 on Sunday night.
Well, especially if you're talking about a lot of unnecessary roughness penalties, a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, like those can be thrown at a variety of different times for things that don't actually jump off the screen to you. I was like, wow, that definitely was such a penalty. So that's definitely a 15-yard penalty that keeps it close. Real quick, I just wanted to ask you, Joe, about the illegal contact penalties. Do you think they're calling more of those because it doesn't result in such a big penalty overall, no pun intended, in terms of like actual spotted the foul with a pass interference? They could just call an illegal contact and it's a gray area. Did the quarterback actually get rid of the ball before this penalty was occurred, or was it after? Why do you think that there is such is it a point of emphasis this offseason, or where are we with this one?
Yeah, well, it actually wasn't a point of emphasis. It was back in 2022, if you remember. That was a big deal going in. To my knowledge, it's not a point of emphasis this season. I think, and I do talk to some of these people on these teams, the teams realize that if you're going to give away a penalty, you don't have to be defensive holding or defensive pass interference in particular. Illegal contact's the least worst option. And so I think teams now are using it as a strategy, okay, especially on first and second down. It doesn't hurt you, really. You know, if a team's got their ball at their own 26 and they're starting at 2nd and 10, and you're not really giving up that much. And the referees know they can only call so many penalties. So if you're going to have one called on you, let's make it a legal contact. It's very minimal in the overall scheme of things. I think the teams are using this now as a weapon to get a penalty out of the way in lieu of a more punitive penalty down the road.
Fascinating. Well, that's Joe Gibbs. He is our ref expert over at Sharp Football Analysis. You can find his analysis every week, breaking down multiple games, some of the referee trends, and what he thinks is going to be the result of those games as a result of who's on the call up at Sharp Football Analysis. But he also goes through and shows you every ref for every single game and some of their historical trends. So don't miss that article over at Sharp Football Analysis. Thanks again, as always, Joe, and enjoy the games this week. Hopefully we don't see too much Shawn Hochuli, but I'm not crossing my fingers.
Great. Thanks, Warren. Good luck.
Today's show has been outstanding, packed with expert bets from 3 experts who are outstanding in their field. But now it's my turn. It's my turn to give you the Novig Value of the week. I'm looking to improve to 7-1 on the season. And for that, let's turn to our odds screen and look at the market. We're going to look at Bijan Robinson, longest reception, over 13.5 yards. And as you can see, the best place in the market is over at Novig, 13.5 minus 114. So let's talk about why I like this prop a lot this week. First and foremost, the Miami Dolphins defense blitzes on 35% of their pass attempts of opposing quarterbacks. That's the 3rd highest blitz rate in the NFL. When blitzed, Michael Penix targets Bijan Robinson 24% of the time. That ranks number 2 highest of any player on the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan's 42% target rate per route run is by far the number 1 highest on the Atlanta Falcons. His 7 receptions against blitzes leads the NFL. He is averaging on these targets an insane 22.9 yards per reception and 16 yards per target. He has catches against the blitz of 69 yards, 50 yards, 15 yards, and 14 yards. And those have come against the defenses of the Commanders, the Bucs, and the Vikings. Now, he's also played teams like the Carolina Panthers, the Buffalo Bills, and the San Francisco 49ers. Those teams have well below average blitz rates. That's not what he's going to get on Sunday, a blitz-heavy Miami Dolphins defense. He still did have longest receptions of 25, 23, and 15 yards in those games against those defenses, but not nearly the upside when he goes up against a defense like the Commanders and the Buccaneers, where he posted his 69-yard catch or his 50-yard catch. The Dolphins actually blitz even more than both of those defenses. And if that wasn't a compelling argument enough for you in the blitzing aspect of this, just look at Bijan Robinson. In his games that he's played this year, he's gone over this number every single week. Undefeated to the over 13.5. He's had a longest reception of at least 15 yards in every single one of his games, regardless of what style the defense is playing. But I particularly think in this game against this blitz-heavy Dolphins team, where he's going to be targeted frequently and the upside is there, I like Bijan Robinson, longest reception over 13.5. And that is my Novig value of the week. And do not forget, click the link in the description below and you can get a $100 match when you open a new account over at Novig. And that'll do it for our Week 8 Sharp Football Analysis Show, the fastest sports betting podcast on the planet. Make sure that you're subscribed and hit the bell below so that you never miss another episode. Also subscribe over on your favorite podcast platforms, wherever you consume podcasts, and we will see you soon.